A big thing to understand about explosive hitting, and just basically just hitting in general, and especially with scouting hitters, is the greatest hitters in the world can hit the ball harder and farther than anybody else. I mean, you really think about it, you look back in time, the greatest hitters in the world, the Ted Williams, the Hank Aaron's, the Willie Mays, and everybody can think of Roberto Clemente, and on and on, and today's modern day stars, they hit the ball harder and farther than everybody else, and that's a fact. So when we're talking about practicing it, we realize that there's more than the intent, but your intent has to be there. Understand, the biggest thing I warn you about is don't get too caught up with trying to look pretty and losing focus on the results, because I see a lot of that, where a lot of people just buy into one hitting philosophy or one hitting style, and they start to focus so much on perfecting the style that they start to forget about the result. Next slide, please. In our Master the Mindset, these are very important stats to look at. Number one, Babe Ruth, who struck out over 1,300 times in his career, and he hit 714 home runs. Reggie Jackson, all-time strikeout leader, and hit over 500 home runs. Both these guys, the joke that we always say here is what do they have in common? Both are in the Hall of Fame, and both have had a candy bar named after them. So remember this, guys, if you can strike out over 1,300 times, and Reggie Jackson something like 2,500 times, if you can strike out that many times in the major leagues, that means you're a pretty good major leaguer. So the fear of failure is often what gets in people's way, and just understand that Ruth and Jackson, that's not what we know them as. We know them as great hitters, not guys who struck out a lot. So the fear of striking out oftentimes gets in the way. Next slide, please. Another thing we like to reinforce is you can't steal second with 1 foot on first. That there is a risk reward. We might swing and miss. Early and often you may swing and miss during training or miss-hit a ball. To become more explosive, that's a short-term failure for a long-term result. Trial and error is needed. You need to get a lot of reps in if you're really going to make this happen. You must be willing to fail. You must be willing to experiment. You must be willing to fall down and get back up again if you're going to become a great hitter. And that takes practice. Most people don't have the patience to fail, and therefore that's where mediocre comes in. They don't have the patience to fail and then get back up again and succeed. You must be dedicated to taking thousands and thousands of swings with a purpose, with the right mindset. That is probably the biggest thing that you got to understand, especially with hitting. You need to get the reps in to become a great hitter. If you're not taking hundreds of swings every week, I'm going to highly doubt you're going to become a very elite hitter. You need to be swinging often, and most importantly, swing with a purpose all the time, and always swing with the right mindset. So swing with a purpose and swing with the right mindset. Next slide, please. Failure. And again, this is a big thing that's holding guys back and becoming more explosive, because they're afraid if they swing and miss, they look bad. They let the team down. If they're afraid, if they strike out, they look down. We always tell our guys this: Nolan Ryan is the all-time strikeout leader, and Nolan Ryan is also the all-time major league leader in walks. Most strikeouts, most walks. Rickey Henderson, known as stolen more bases in the history of baseball, but nobody's been caught out more than Rickey Henderson. These are all great players. Aaron, Ruth, Jackson, all of these guys are great players. All have experienced plenty of failure in the process. It's how you respond to the failure and how much resilience you have and how much time you're willing to put into it. Next slide, please. This is huge for us. Are you focusing on what you look like or ignoring the result? Again, that goes back to, are you focusing on being pretty or are you focusing on the result? And again, this one is huge because usually a lack of patience. Are you experimenting? Experiment, experiment, experiment. Find out what works and what does not. One way does not work for everyone. If you're not experimenting, chances are you're not going to become a great hitter. Most people don't experiment because they don't have the patience or the time to put in to experiment. This is very important in your process of becoming an explosive hitter. This is the final segment, or the end of our Master the Mindset Part 3 segment.